I'm James Cridland, the radio futurologist. This week, the iTunes podcast chart. Now, please, can we stop calling it a chart? Because it isn't a chart. Let's call it the iTunes podcast number thing. Because the fundamental thing is, it doesn't measure downloads. That's what I mean when I say that it isn't a chart. The podcast that's number one is not the podcast that has the most amount of downloads. The iTunes podcast number thing is there to help people discover new podcasts. So it doesn't measure downloads because it would be really hard to change the chart if it did that. Instead, it measures the number of new, unique subscribers that a podcast has had, averaged out over a few days. That's why it's constantly changing, because it's designed to. And why, if you find your position in the iTunes podcast number thing going down, as it inevitably will, it's nothing to do with the amount of downloads your podcast has or your popularity as a podcaster. It's merely that the amount of new, unique subscribers for your podcast that week has decreased. So, promote it more. Radio talent especially thrives on numbers because we want to be liked, and how better to know that you're liked than numbers of followers on Twitter or your Facebook page or another kind of chart like the iTunes podcast number thing. But this one is nothing to do with consumption or audience or popularity or anything. The iTunes podcast number thing is only an indication on how good you are at driving new subscribers to iTunes. If it is a chart, it just lists the best marketers in the business, which is why we in radio have an unfair advantage in that we have a recognised brand and hundreds of thousands of listeners every day who we can market a new podcast to. The real numbers you should be pushing for are total podcast downloads. Go hunt those down and ignore the iTunes podcast chart because it's not a chart. You can get my weekly newsletter at james.crid.land, and until next time, keep listening.